welcome back to the Consultancy Growth Podcast. I'm Professor Joe Romani. I have the absolute pleasure this week of being joined by Jamie Shanks. And Jamie has had a very interesting and varied life, but I think there's a huge amount that we can learn from Jamie, partly on business development and sales, but also partly the entrepreneur's journey. Now, Jamie, before we get stuck into the questions, I will only make a disaster of introducing you. So do introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got to CEO and founder of Get Levrg.
Fantastic. So, as mentioned, I'm the CEO of Get Levrg, which essentially takes on sales and marketing tasks from our small to medium customers. We call it doing the $5 an hour tasks so that they can focus on $500 an hour value creation. And our global delivery operations center is in Dhaka, Bangladesh. We're a team of 115, and we're growing at 10% compounded a month. So it's quite a ride. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. So I've owned 3 agencies. My first agency was a global sales training company that I invented and pioneered a sales methodology called social selling. That was a hit. Agency number 2 was a tech-enabled service that took the foundations of our learning model and tried to turn it into a technology. That was, and I use baseball analogies, although I recognize that you're in the UK.
We get the picture.
Yeah.
Some of the terminology. Go on.
My first agency was I'll call it a first base hit. It was fantastic. Second agency was like getting a pitch to the face. Didn't work out. And then agency 3, I'm up at the plate right now, and I'm smelling a home run on my plate. So that's me.
They do say that you learn from the failures, and every time you get a bit better.
That is very true.
Obviously, it would be nice if various politicians left the global economy alone, so that we could have a smooth run there as well.
Exactly.
Listen, okay, so great. I mean, most founders I come across, they'll do one, and whether it's successful or not, often they'll just be so exhausted afterwards that they might try a second one, but they certainly pull back from a third. Now, we had a little chat earlier about my proclivities for getting a bit too stressed when there's too much work on. And you said you were almost diametrically opposite in that respect. How do you keep the energy, motivation levels up to keep going through that entrepreneurial journey 3 times, let alone once?
I think everybody's motivated by different things. And if I had Freud sitting next to me, he might say that I was, as a kid in school, I was always told I wasn't good enough, wasn't smart enough. So that might be part A.
Okay.
So I'm trying to prove something to everybody. Maybe it's to also prove it to myself. But to be honest, I've always been motivated by fear. And fear is an engine that never stops. And so I've had some great successes, some great failures, but I'm 47 years old now. I feel like a 27-year-old. Maybe it's because I keep myself very
Wow. Do you have kids?
I have a 13-year-old and 11-year-old.
Bloody hell, man. Well done.
Yeah. So I really do have the energy of somebody much younger than me.
Wow.
And again, I don't know if it is I am managed by fear, but I wake up every day. And here's the thing about entrepreneurship. The thing about entrepreneurship is you are climbing a mountain, and then you will get to the top of the mountain, and you will realize you're in a mountain range, and that range never ends.
Yep.
And so it took me a long time to understand that you actually need to enjoy the climbing of mountain, because there actually is no destination. You will just go from one mountain up to the next range and the next range. I'm a huge backcountry skier, and there's a type of skiing called tour skiing. So you literally skin up the top, and you get to the top, and you realize there is no top, and it teaches you that you actually have to enjoy the act of building and the act of the suck.
Yep.
If you enjoy that, then you're ready for entrepreneurship.
That's such a good way of putting it. There's always a bigger mountain. You've got to enjoy the journey. And I think a lot of people, and I potentially put myself in this category, often say to ourselves, once we get to X, and that might be a number, it might be an achievement, it might be external recognition, then we'll be happy. But then you achieve that, and then you're like, oh, there's still this thing inside me that isn't quite there, so I need to go on and do something else. Um, this is quite deep for a Tuesday afternoon here, but I'm guessing Tuesday morning over there.
Yes. Yeah, and the reality is, again, I've wise enough 3 agencies later to realize that
Yeah,
the appetite is insatiable and actually you'll never be fulfilled. I think there is a type of entrepreneur, and I've met many of them, and I now recognize I'm one of those. No matter what I accomplish, I will want more.
sure. Yeah,
And so I better embrace the act of eating rather than the act of fulfillment because I'll just be a glutton forever.
yeah. You're good with metaphors, by the way. I once worked for one of a billionaire in Hong Kong. He's one of the top 10 richest people in the world. A guy called Li Ka-shing, and he was 74 when I was working for him, and he was still going 10 years later. And I said to him, "Are you ever going to stop to enjoy your money?" And he said, I'm enjoying it." So it's not in other words, it wasn't the money he was doing it for. It was the journey, which I took a lot from. Um, let's talk a little bit about sales for life. Now, you trained over a quarter of a million professionals, incredibly successful clients like Microsoft and Oracle. Um, what what was the key to success there? What was the moment where you really realized you'd built something that you could sell on, that had value outside of you and a few key people?
The world was starting at that time to recognize that social media would be a powerful medium of communication, but nobody had ever used social media to turn it into sales processes that could be repeatable for business development. And that's what social selling was. And there was a sales play that I didn't invent anything because it had been used in the analog world forever, but I just digitized it and built a workflow around it. Called it the sphere of influence. And it was a very simple concept. You take one of your happy, successful customers, you take a sheet of paper, and you write their name in the center of the sheet of paper. So imagine I'm drinking out of a Yeti water bottle right now. I put Yeti, the logo of Yeti at the center of a sheet of paper, and I draw a circle around it. And I ask myself a fundamental question. If I were to tell that story of Yeti to other people, who would actually care? Well, what happens is most sellers, their company has McDonald's as a customer or might have British Airways or whatever the company is. And they think that if I just tell that McDonald's story to everybody, they'll all care. And that's just not true. The concept of the sphere of influence is what I would do is take that story of Yeti and I would reverse engineer 1 degree of separation around that story. A really powerful example of that are what about the past employees of Yeti that up and leave and they go to other businesses? And when they go to other businesses, they think about the people, the process, and the technology that they used at Yeti that made them
Mm,
successful.
mm,
And so all you're doing is telling that story to those people. So you tell the story to past employees of Yeti, vendors and suppliers to Yeti, competitors to Yeti, because they're the very first people that would pick up the phone, respond to your email, respond to
mhm,
your LinkedIn message, and say, "Oh, you work with them? Yeah, I know exactly what it's like to succeed and fail there because we're within 1 degree of separation of that story." So basically, I taught customers how to spider web their stories into take one customer and turn it into 5 to 10 prospects you want to target. And it spiraled from there into all kinds of different workflows. But it worked almost immediately upon me building this training methodology. And that's why it scaled very quickly. And, we jumped from the day I started, my first customer was September of 2012 with a little local Toronto based market research company. And 1 year later, I was building the global curriculum for Oracle and Microsoft.
Wow.
And
Wow.
like a light bulb went off. Like this is like I've jumped many levels here. Yeah.
So listen, okay, right. So I get the good concept. I've never worked with a firm that scaled that fast, and I've worked with, multi-billion pound startups. So twice already you've mentioned um, processes. So how do you, once you realize you've got a product that has something to it, how do you start to build process? And this I think will be of great interest to many founders who are listening to this, because they often challenge, they'll have themselves, then they'll have some partners, then they'll have some people, and then they'll get to 30 people and they say, well, we probably need a CRM. But you're kind of talking maybe getting to 50, 60, 70 people before they start to think about process efficiency, scaling, etc. Sometimes 100 people. How do you go about that? What practical steps did you take to systematize what you were doing so that it was scalable?
Okay. So I'm a big believer in something I call 3 Ps. So first thing is where most people gravitate towards is platforms or tools. They think I've got a sales problem. I'm going to buy the next hot widget or boobob that's going to solve that problem. It's
Yeah.
actually the reverse. It goes principles, then it goes process, then it goes platforms. So a principle, as an example, a great set of principles is that from a business development standpoint, you need a lighthouse and a tugboat. You need a lighthouse. That means I need to create and attract people towards me as a principle. And at the same time, I'm going to plant the trees of a tugboat. I'm going to pull people towards me. That's an outbound business development motion.
Mm-hmm.
Process. I am going to, as an example, develop one experimental campaign for my lighthouse and one for my tugboat. Platform. I'm for my lighthouse, I'm going to launch a podcast. And for my tugboat, I'm going to do a campaign on LinkedIn that invites people to, I'm just making this up, to a regional breakfasts as I do a tour around the UK from city to city. That's connecting the dots between principles, process, platforms. So, what did we do at Sales for Life? At Sales for Life, we our lighthouse was that we ran a webinar every 2 weeks, and we ran a virtual summit every 3 to 4 months. And so what we were doing is we would build this giant database, and the webinars we called Operation Land Grab. What we would do was invite famous sales training businesses. We would invite sales consulting firms. We would invite high powered chief revenue officers who had great social networks. And they would be the guests on the panel of our webinars. And we'd be using their social network, who they would share our story about the upcoming webinar every 2 weeks for years and years. We built a multi 100,000 person database in the sales community by using other
Wow.
people's social. So that was our lighthouse strategy. And
Mm-hmm.
our tugboat strategy was we were using our own methodology. Every time we won a customer, we literally had our entire office was whiteboard wall painted, and we would win a customer. We would draw their name on the whiteboarded walls, draw a circle around it, and spider web off all the connective companies around them. And then we would outbound prospect those 5 to 10 companies. We would win one of those, circle that one,
Great. Great.
draw 10 spider webs off of it. We got to 600 customers. And so it was nothing more than leaning in on a few campaign bets, but was planting trees between lighthouses and tugboats. So that's the principle. The process was we were going to draw out standard operating procedures and workflows for one of each.
Mm-hmm.
And from a platform standpoint, the platform of the webinar might have been, as an example, like we're using Zoom here, and the platform for outbound was going to be LinkedIn.
Sure.
And nothing more than that. It's just that I think that the average chief revenue officer founder who tries to jump into doing more sales, They're like, we need to improve. Let's go buy a Zoom Info or
Sure.
Gong.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Well, you're buying like a tool to find data, but you don't even know what the strategy is. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Great, great. There's so much value in those metaphors and story. That's fantastic. Okay, I want to move on because there's a lot I want to ask you. But you wrote the book "Outsource to Profits," um, and in it you argue, and this kind of links to what you're doing now, that founders are paying 5 to 10 times more per role than necessary. Now, the outsourced model or the offshore model is one that a lot of CEOs have been bitten with because they see the numbers and they think, oh, we can. This is something that we can save some money on, and very often the quality isn't there, but the quality clearly is there with what you're doing. So, how have you managed to maintain that quality um, in Get Levrg?
So I'll talk about it at a principles level, and then also an important process level. From a principles standpoint, we knew that we needed to build a full agency, top to bottom, as if it was sitting on Madison Avenue in New York or sitting on Bond Road or whatever in London. It had to be a full proper agency. That meant a chief operating officer, head of service delivery, a quality assurance team, product innovators. And when we deploy talent to the customer, there would be a customer success manager who would just be there listening. Then there was project managers who organized pods of people that did the work. And so it was not, unfortunately, most founders, as they jumped into offshoring, they would go on to Upwork. Can you build me a PowerPoint slide?
Yep, yep,
They would find Johnny, wherever Johnny lives in the world, who's working from their basement, who has no attachment to the business and has no accountability to the success or failure of the business, and then would lob
yep,
in work amongst the other 17 things that he's doing
yeah,
that.
yeah, yep,
That's so we are exactly like every other North American or UK agency except the delivery operation centers in Dhaka, Bangladesh. So now you've got the same rigor of using monday.com and workflows and infrastructure. The other thing that's important from a founder's perspective is it's truly understanding the economics. And it only takes the mind of a seller, I sometimes think, to get this. Imagine you have $1 million business and you're employing this team of people to do marketing for $200,000 as an example. And all of a sudden, yeah, and you're barely making profit, but you wish you were making 20% profit. So 20% profit on $1 million is also $200,000. The opportunity cost of that $200,000, 20% profit. If you were at zero profit and you wanted to get to $200,000 profit, that's actually $1 million in net new sales.
mm-hmm,
Get there.
yep,
And so you ask yourself, the founder, are you willing to go from your $1 million of revenue to
mm,
$2 million of revenue just to make your $200,000 in profit? Like, where is that extra doubling of your business going to come from?
yep,
And what happens is they don't look at their cost of customer acquisition and cost of goods sold as like a headwind and a tailwind.
mm-hmm,
And when you save, if I could drop your expense from $200,000 to 20,000 and you saved $180,000,
yep,
what you just did is you did two things. You either prevented yourself from trying to go win $800,000 more in business, or in the other way to look at it is you no longer need to plow retained earnings and profit into trying to get to that insane level of growth. And what founders need to realize is that 80% done by other people is 100% better than done by themselves. And
yeah,
so as a founder, is things going to be perfect? Probably not. But the reality is, what is perfect worth to you? Is
yeah.
that worth sacrificing all of your profit or trying to double your business just to
Yeah.
stay afloat.
And no one gets perfect anyway. No, even if you've got the best staff, best qualified, department, and I guess the other thing is, and I'm not trying to sell your business, but the other thing is the opportunity cost of the founders' time having to coordinate all those bloody Upwork and Fiverr people.
It's
Um,
crazy.
and often people they'll save money, they'll find good people, but none of these people are talking to each other, so they spend all their time running between them, trying to put them together, and it all starts to fall apart. Good. Okay. Thank you. Um, Pipeline signals monitors job challenges and human capital to identify sales opportunities, what you call relationship signal
Yeah.
intelligence. Um, Now, consulting firms and all professional services live and die by relationships. So if you're a CEO of I don't know, 100, 200 person consultancy, how would they use that to defend existing accounts or generate new business?
Yeah. Pipeline signals as a thesis, unbelievable. Our problem was our own execution. But here's the concept of it: we surfaced two intent signals that were really, really valuable to any organization. People are the ones that make buying decisions. So, what if you just followed people around the world? So, let's follow a couple people. Number one, what about, as we talked about the sphere of influence, you gave us a list of every customer of yours and we reverse engineered everybody that left those customers and went to other businesses. Amazing. That's a great high intent lead list. First, people that would get your story. But the
Hmm.
second is human capital migration. Imagine you have an account. Yeti is your active, happy customer. Now, all of a sudden, we're tracking everyone that gets hired into that company and everyone that leaves that company. What happens is many times sales organizations are calling in to departments where there was a change of leadership. A key stakeholder left. Now the priority just walked out the door that you were working on. They're going to backfill it with a new leader. That leader is going to come in with new people, process, and technology.
Hmm.
So there's both opportunities and risks at the same time when we're tracking both sides. New leader comes in, they're more malleable to change. In that first 100 days, you can plant the seeds of inception. Like, hey, what's your game plan? But what if they came from a competitor? They're going to come with preconceived notions that you suck and you're not
Hmm.
going to
Hmm.
be working together. The priority you were working on, did it just walk out the door? And now all of a sudden is your account in jeopardy? And this has happened to every seller in the world. You're working with these people, you forge relationships, they quit and they leave their job. Now all of a sudden, nobody cares about your widget, your boo bob, your
Sure. Yep.
service, your solution anymore. So that's what we were tracking is if you follow the people, you then follow the priorities around. So yeah, from a concept standpoint, worked really well. There's now, with the advent of AI, technology has really caught up to being able uh, to
Sure.
deliver this intelligence at scale. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. If we have time, we'll touch on AI later because I can imagine it's something you think a lot about. I'm interested. So on your podcast, you talk about founders struggling to transition to not being responsible for 100% of the sales in effect. Now, I'm interested because you're charismatic. You talk well. I can imagine that you sell very well. And in some ways, that's a great thing for you. In other ways, has it
The
been a
hardest thing
struggle?
to get
Yeah.
rid of.
Has it been a struggle? Because
Yes.
you've clearly got a team around you, and they probably, finding people like you who can sell with that personality, with that ability to talk, being charismatic isn't easy. So how have you personally managed to pull yourself out of at least some of the sales effort?
It is a learning journey, and that I am almost exited founder-led sales, and I'll talk through the exact process of Get Leverage. So Get Leverage has now grown to a mid seven-figure agency very quickly, and so the time is for me to leave founder-led sales. So Here's the process that I went through. First thing to do is draw out the entire sales process. And we've chosen our sales process to be delivered in what's called a portfolio management framework, meaning that when a new lead comes in, the seller picks up the lead from sales qualified lead all the way to building consensus, delivers a proposal, works in contract, wins the deal, continues the relationship with the customer to customer retention, upsell, cross sell, and it's a monthly recurring revenue model. So now it's for the lifetime value of the customer.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't do the classic SaaS model, which bifurcates the account executive who wins the
Yep.
deal,
Yep.
then hands over to a customer success manager. In professional services, I'm a huge fan that people just want one relationship through the journey. So now you've drawn out early days, we chose that model right away. So now we have a portfolio model, a portfolio management model. The next thing to do as the founder is to think about what gives you energy and what sucks the energy away from you. I've always been a net new sales guy. And so from that, my skill set is not based on onboarding and beyond. That's not me. So what I needed to do was find talent that could take
Mm-hmm.
on from the moment of signature to the customer lifetime value forever. And so we started hiring account managers that knew that someday in the future they would be creeping backwards beyond, from the sale all the way earlier to sales qualified lead, but made it very clear to them, you won't be hunters, you won't be trying to chase net new business. We'll build a team there,
Mm-hmm.
but you're going to be handed leads, and this is your portfolio forever. So step one, bring in account managers to handle the customer. Step two, develop playbooks to teach them to start chipping away. And when you look at sales, even from sales qualified lead to close one, there are many steps and processes.
Mm.
You break them down systematically and you say, okay, there's now 15 different things there. Let me teach you step two and step six and step nine. And we start chipping away at them until they can tackle the whole thing. And then what we've done is built an SDR team to do business development against paid media. So at that point, and then the last component is to build playbooks and systems that could track, obviously using HubSpot, using
Mm.
AI, track everything that we're doing so that eventually, next step, I as the sales leader, step after that, replace me as the sales leader.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I mean, it's something that I come across a hell of a lot. Is founders who are still, they might only be responsible for, 50%, let's say 40% of revenue, um, and getting and the mistake they often make is trying to find the person like them who can come in and have the charisma and all the rest of it. And I always say, well, those people are starting their own businesses, uh,
Yeah. I'm
and
trying to find people that want to serve
yeah,
the customer.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so but it takes time to build that competence. So good on you for having those results so quickly, because it's no mean feat. Tell us a little bit about your client base. What size is it? A size thing? Is it a sector thing? So do you have a specific size or sector that you focus on?
Great question. So whenever you build a sales organization, you are either an account-based model, you're geographically focused, you're vertical or industry focused, or you're market segment focused. We're market segment focused. So we target the founder-led companies between 1 and 500 employees, both in business to business and business to consumer. Most of our customers are in North America, a few are in Europe, but the commonality, and the average customer has something like 47, 50 employees. They are all resource starved. They're small to medium businesses that need help getting out of the day to day muck.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Yep, and the typical challenges will be that the founder or the senior team is being pulled into stuff that they really shouldn't be. That they've got a few people perhaps on Upwork or Fiverr who do a few good things, but they don't have coordination and perhaps a strategy and processes behind them.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Okay. Listen, final question. I love your LinkedIn page, by the way. And by the way, any partners listening to this, I talk a lot about visible expertise. Number one, I love your setup. Number two, I love your LinkedIn page. So if there's any partners or directors who are thinking about how they can make themselves more visible and professionally, I would, number one, look at this on video on YouTube, but also number two, have a look at your web page, your LinkedIn page. But on your LinkedIn page, I love the baseball metaphor: two first base hits, one bunt, three strikeouts, and at BAT big time with bat big time with Get Levrg.
Uh-huh. I'm
Um,
at that right now. Yeah.
yeah, there we go. That's great. So listen, most people don't talk about it. I mean, a bunt is a bad thing, is it?
No, well,
No,
a bunt is a learning experience
a learning
because
experience. Okay,
if
good.
you if you've ever if you watch American baseball, the bunt is the pitch comes in, you hit it only 5 feet in front of you, and
Yep,
you have to run to the bag. Uh, and very few times it's successful. And
great.
I, I'm either a bunt or a pitch to the face. It was one of
Yeah.
the two.
Okay, so tell us about a few learnings from the things that haven't gone well. What are the key things, and it's quite rare that people talk about these because normally they only talk about the
Yeah.
successes. So I think that's a great thing to do. Talk about two or three things that you have taken from some of the things where, you didn't get to first base, but you've learned things from it and you're using them now.
Most important decisions you'll ever make. And so then I'll talk maybe about three of them. Real quick is going to be principle number one is going to be the economic model of a positive or negative cash flow cycle. So how you collect money. Number two will be choosing a partnerships and equity distribution. And then number three is trying to be something that you're not. I'm an agency guy. I'm a non-technical founder, and trying to become a technologist wasn't wise. So first one is around choosing your business model. One of the worst decisions I ever made in a very successful business, my first agency, Sales for Life, is we did not build a recurring revenue model from day one. We got addicted to huge project-based revenue. Those deals, when I started, we were doing $20,000 deals. Then eventually it crept up to quarter million and $500,000 deals, but it was project-based revenue. Less than 25% of our revenue would recur every year. Another 25% would call reoccur, which means the customer would port over, the IP from one year to the next, and they would renew a license, but it wasn't recurring. And then 50% was project based. What happens is it's called the law of big numbers. And the bigger you get, the bigger the hole you have to fill when you have project based revenue. So you compound that with hiring talent and supporting a huge, a burn rate of maybe $300,000, $500,000 a month. And if you have a few slow months, you
Mm,
become the bank. And the worst decision I ever made was allowing customers to pay what's called DSO, days sales outstanding, accounts receivables of. We started it was accounts receivables of their 30 days. And then big
okay.
companies would sign 45 days, 60 days, 90 days.
Yep.
The bigger you get, you actually become a bank. And
Mm,
there's a magic law number. If you aren't collecting accounts receivables in under 29 days, then what you're actually doing is going to the bank, whether it's out of your own bank account or the actual bank, borrowing money to pay payroll and your rent and everything for the end of this month. Then you're going to collect money next month that paid for the services you did the month before. And so the bigger you get, your accounts receivables become a deferred liability, a debt. And I woke up one day and I was $1.1 million in debt. Yet I had a
oh, wow.
successful company.
Yep.
So with Get Leverage, the principle that I set from day one was we were going to allow customers to only pay on credit card, and it would have a positive cash flow cycle. They had to pay before they got the service. So we started the company on a $10,000 credit card, and we used positive cash flow cycles to fuel the growth of the whole company. That's the most important decision I ever made, because now I wasn't the bank. The
Yep.
customer were fueling the growth. So, anyways, getting into details, there was other failures, but that's the biggest one, is the economic model you set up your business around.
Great. And I think that's so important these days, where product, AI, data, there's so many opportunities for consultancies to do recurring revenue models and not have to send, accounts receivable for 45 days.
I would never do project-based revenue again.
Great lesson there. Jamie, listen, there's so much here. I'm going to go back and listen to this, and I'm certainly going to check out your firm, because you're actually describing me as your ideal customer here. So I'm going to check it. Thanks so much for your time. And how can people find you?
I go to Get Levrg. It's spelled GET and then LEVRG. It's a play on words.com. Go to getleverage.com, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and happy to have a conversation.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Take care of yourself.
Thanks a lot.